Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes. Today I have Amelia Forczak, New York Times best-selling ghostwriter. And, you know, for those that know me, I mess up all the time, and this is the third attempt, but we're going to go with it, and whatever mistakes we make from this point on stays. And I'm just glad she's here because the bright orange glasses, if you can see, are just amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is just going to be fun. I mean, we started off just having a blast already. But a lot of my listeners know that I used to do a lot of ghostwriting, and I still do for certain things. But I've kind of pulled back a little bit on the book ghostwriting because it's an absolute for me. It's an absolute time suck. But I know that you guys, your team, and you focus on that constant. I mean, that's your big draw. I mean, you're known for that, and so I wanted to give the listeners aspects on how to hire a ghostwriter. What do they look for in a ghostwriter, and maybe you can shed some light on that.
Sure. Yeah, I love discussing ghostwriting in books, and that's definitely what we do. So at Pithy Wordsmithery, like half of our business is helping authors write and edit their books, and the other half is marketing. So
And
that's
and that
another
that
huge.
is a cool name for
Oh,
the
thanks.
business.
Yeah, but don't you think that's like half the work is marketing? And I know that's
It is.
not always something that people want to hear, especially because the book writing process can be so long. But once you're done with the book, the rest of the project's just marketing. And to be honest, you should be starting marketing when you're writing the book. So yeah, it's a lot of work there,
You
but
know,
we
I,
help with
I
both those things.
I- I've known a lot of people have ghostwritten their book, um, but the big thing is that they spend a lot of money and they get this book written, and it's a brilliant book. But then it just sits there. They don't attempt to market, they don't attempt to do anything, and they just hope that somebody will stumble upon the book and on Amazon or the New York Times list or wherever. And I'm like, no, you got to market, and they don't understand that concept.
Yeah. I know. It's if you're good at marketing and you already have some momentum, I think it can be really helpful for making the process easier. And even if you've got somebody on your team who can help you with it, it just makes it a lot smoother. But if you're not used to doing any marketing and you want to have a book, it can be, I think the hardest part is to adjust to that and realizing that you need to start putting yourself out there online and just telling people what you do.
Yeah, one of the things that I see all the time are people posting. They'll be flying, and they're in the airport, and they come across, I guess it's Hudson News. They have all the books in the airports, and I want my book here. Okay, great. Have you written a book? Have you started the book? Do you even have an idea of what your book's supposed to be? Well, no, but I want it. You got to start somewhere. Okay, granted, you got this vision of your book being there, but have you reached out to anybody to help you with that idea? And most of them are no. And then they sit down to try to write, and they don't have the time. They don't have the idea of where it's supposed to go, and that's why hiring people like you and
Yeah, exactly. You need a writing partner.
right. So, what's your process? How do you start? And I know ghostwriting. My process is probably very similar to yours, but I think you look cooler.
Yeah, so I do ghostwriting in a couple different ways. So sometimes people come to me and they say that they want help writing a book and people have been telling them that they should write a book. They've got a platform to sell it. Maybe they speak on the topic all the time. They have a company. So they've got people who want to hear what they have to say. They just don't know exactly what the book will look like. So I'll work with them from the very beginning to figure out their goals. So why are we writing the book? What does success look like? Like, where do they want to be in 5 to 10 years? How would the book help them get there? Because the book really should align with their thought leadership and what they want to be known for, so that it can help them reach their goals. And it can, people talk about books being like a business card.
Hmm.
So it really needs to line up with your thought leadership to do that. So I'll work with them from the beginning to get the strategy down. And then we'll also work on the outline. I think the outline is huge. I know so many people sit down to write because it's therapeutic, or they've got, a certain thought in their head and they're like, let me get it on paper. And it feels like you're making progress. But if you don't have the outline, you don't always know if the content that you're writing is actually going to work for the
Hmm.
direction you're trying to go with the book. So even if it feels good to sit down and start trying to get some words on paper, I always think that the outline is the important first step.
Right.
So, and I've seen this come up over and over again working with clients who they reach out and they say, I wrote a book, it needs some work. And it's like a wild card from there to figure out how much work it actually needs.
Hmm.
And I've met so many really smart people, like Ivy League business school graduates, very successful C-suite people, very successful entrepreneurs who struggled so much writing their book. And you could tell they just didn't have a good outline. If they would have had an outline that set them up for success, it would have been completely different. So I'm a huge fan of doing the outline first.
And we talked off air about keeping your book more conversational in tone and less English major type. And we wrote a book for a client, and it was, I mean, I loved it from start to finish. I turned it over to my team. They loved it from start to finish. We turned it over to the client, and he loved it from start to finish. Then he gave it to his wife, who's an English teacher, and she ripped it apart from end to end. And so it hasn't been published, and it's been a year.
Oh, that's too bad.
And it's like, dude, you paid. I mean, well, get it out there. At least you're gonna make some money on. Uh,
Yeah.
and
One thing that I always like to do when I'm ghostwriting is to go chapter by chapter and have the author sign off on it as we go to make sure that we're getting the tone right. So I'd always make sure to do that at the very beginning so that if there are any adjustments, like maybe we're too casual or we're too formal or whatever it is, we got to get that down
Mhm.
so that the rest of it is easier. Because there's always a little bit of a learning curve in the beginning, right? But I think once the author sees the work and they, maybe they'll share it with their friends and family then if that's really important to them rather than wait till the very end. I think that works a little better.
Yeah, it's now it can be a pain when you're not dealing with the actual client.
Yeah.
Just but yeah, there's you know we go back to the ideas, and even for my own first book, I had this stack of ideas that I took off my blogs from years and years ago. And as I was sorting through, I thought I'm just going to assemble these blogs and see how it looks, and make it a book. And I get halfway through the assembly of this, and I'm like, no, this is junk. I can't. This isn't going to work. And I just tossed all of them. I tossed the whole box of ideas away. And coming back from a trip to Arizona, I came up with the idea of my first book, and it was basically the easiest social media book you'll ever read. And it was just very easy, 120 pages, just 27 great ideas to get your social media pumping. Now, is the book relevant now? Well, certain parts of it are, but there's been so many changes on Facebook and Instagram, and in fact, I don't even think Snapchat was in existence when that book came out. So I've been writing a lot more relevant books, more evergreen books, because with technology, as soon as you get the book out, it's outdated.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely want there to be an evergreen quality to it. So I think that comes from the approach,
Hmm.
like the way that you approach a topic instead of trying to talk specifically about different platforms. Like I mostly do business books. So even if we want to talk about like Asana or Loom or these great tools that we
Oh,
use, we're
let's
like,
not
is
talk
this going
about.
to be around in 5 years or 10 years? I know it's awesome now, but like, so we usually just try to stay away from naming, like calling out those platforms.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Asana or Trello or All those other ones.
Really?
Yeah,
Asana, like, just changed my life. I'm a huge
really.
fan of it. Yeah, we implemented it for my business because we were scaling so quickly that it
Hmm.
was starting to just get a little, not a little, it was getting really confusing. Like, I have got 20 people on my team now, and a lot of them are within, like, the past year. And so for managing projects for clients, it was so confusing with
Yeah,
who's doing what are the deadlines, where are the files that go with this stuff, what are the timelines, and Asana helped us keep track of all of that.
yeah. The problem is that I'm more of an overseer now. I still tinker in a lot of what the clients are doing, and I still write some articles on the side. But I'd rather have my team focus. They can do Asana and Trello all day long, but I want one person to come to me every day and say, "This is what's going on." I
Yeah.
can't focus when I'm looking at a schedule day in and day out of where I need to be, when I need to be it, and to me that's not what a CEO is supposed to be doing.
You need an assistant.
Yeah, just and to me, I just get rid of all that crap. I don't want to be micromanaged, and that's how I feel when my name is in Asana or Trello, and it has some type of project next to it. Um,
Yeah.
the
Well, you gotta
ADD,
find what works for you.
yeah, and I think that. But let's go back to ghostwriting. You know, is there a particular client that you look for, or avoid when you're trying to help them?
Different clients. Okay, so are we talking like demographics or are we talking traits here?
We can go traits because I'm very sarcastic. So I like people that come to me that have already read my books, that they know how sarcastic I am. So when I'm helping them, they don't
Yeah.
get annoyed with something I said or did or about to do. They know my personality. We've already kind of meshed. But you know, and I guess
Yeah.
when you look at industry wise, I try to help lawyers and doctors. I don't go out of that realm.
Yeah. So, I mean, for demographics, I'm usually working with leaders and entrepreneurs. So, C-suite people or people who've had a business for a while. I do a lot of books on leadership and personal development, that kind of thing. In terms of traits for what would make a good client, let's see here. So there are definitely some that I look for and some that are kind of like red flags. Um, Knowing who you are is a huge thing.
Mm,
So I want to work with people who have this well established brand, or at least in their head they know what they want to be
right,
known for. They're not going to be wavering back and forth. Well, is that me or is that not me? That makes it hard for me to
right,
figure out what to write. So somebody who can make decisions and be a good judge of what they want in their book, and they're not going to waver back and forth. That makes a really good client.
right.
Also, just somebody who's a true expert, I think is, I can certainly like ask good questions and sort of like dig that out of people a little bit and do some research on the side. But I love working with people who really know their stuff and they're true experts in their field. And also people who are great at communicating. Like some people are just better at that than others. And I found that professional speakers are really good communicators most of the time. So a lot of the times I'm working with people who want to have a book because they do speaking, and those things go really well together. And those people are great clients because they're so used to explaining things. They've got their stories, and it's just the conversations are really smooth. So when we have our weekly calls to talk through the chapters, those things go really well. Where it's not like I'm interviewing someone and I'm like, okay, well, how do you usually explain this? And they're like, well, I don't know. That makes it harder.
Yeah, because a professional speaker has already polished his story or his or her story,
Yeah.
and so when you go to interview them, that story is already so polished that all you have to do is put it in the book. But with someone who hasn't been in the speaking realm or hasn't been on a lot of these podcasts, their story is very rough. and
Right.
and and
It's
and
harder.
now you have to spend time to try to figure out, okay, how do I smooth the edges out, or can I? And sometimes you discover things that maybe you don't want to put in a book.
Yeah, that's no, that's definitely true. I've interviewed people where we'll talk through things and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, let's leave that out. I don't know if that's really like aligning with where we're trying to go or your brand image. So I think I'm really good at being honest with people and telling them those things because it's my job to make them look good, right? Like we want to be honest, but we want to put them in the best light possible. So yeah, I filter out some of their information sometimes.
So how'd you get started?
Yeah, so I always wanted to write books. My mom was a librarian growing up, so I was like always around books. I went to school for journalism and I graduated around the time the newspapers were consolidating
Mhm.
and it just didn't seem like a great field to go into. So I decided to go into marketing, which so much of marketing is content, like articles, social, everything. And so I found that was a really good fit for me. And then I was working in the marketing department of a consulting firm, and our CEO got approached by a literary agent who said, I know a publishing house that's looking for an author. Would would the CEO want to do it? He definitely wanted to do it, but he's like, I don't have time to do this. Like, who's going to write this book? And I was like, I'll write it. I was so excited about it because that's like what I had always wanted to do. And it ended up becoming a New York Times bestseller. And I was 27 and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I started a business on the side doing writing and marketing for authors and then ultimately moved it full time. And it's been 10 years since I had it and it's been really great. I've ghostwritten, I think, 11 books in that time and grown my team to be 20 people. And it's been awesome.
That's a cool origin story, and I love entrepreneurs that have that origin story that they can just share out to the world because I think that's very like Spider-Man and Superman. They all have this origin story that they gave them these superpowers, and this is the one that turned you into this awesome person, and I think that's incredible. And I've
Thanks.
interviewed a lot of people, and some of them just don't understand how they got their powers, how they got this, that was it just evolution, you know? And it's just it's weird because and for me, I've written a lot of books and I write a lot of articles, but I hated English in high school. I hated English in college. And I guess it was for me, it was that moment of time in my style of writing. I would go into my college English classes, and the teacher was like, "You can't write like that." And then I would point out, some well-known multimillionaire author who writes the same style I do. Well, you can't write like that because they're well known and you're not.
You have to earn the right. Yeah.
No,
Annoying.
yeah, it was annoying, and so I didn't write for a good long time, and then I just decided, you know enough's enough. We got to tell the world what we can do, and I think I annoyed more people than I told, but hey, it's we all have to start somewhere, and
Yeah.
for those that love English, follow Amelia because just she writes her style is fantastic. I went on her website. I looked at some of the stuff that she does, and it's just incredible. And
Thank you.
for me, if you want sarcasm, follow me because you'll never be the same. But and that's the thing. Here, when I started writing, I didn't I didn't want to offend anybody. So a lot of my books were very clean. Gave people specific instruction. But you know, then when I started coming out with the Rob versus books, which was my sarcastic take on life, a very anybody who could be offended probably is in the book. So, but those books have become my marketing piece. They have become that piece that people are like they gravitate to, they laugh, and they want to know more of what I can do for them. But they've also been that that thing that repels. So if you don't like humor, if you don't like sarcasm, you're not going to pick up the book. You're not going to contact me. You're not going to hire me. So for me, that was that ultimate way of pre-qualifying my client.
I think it's good to have a perspective on that stuff too, because if you don't, it's just watery, right?
Mm,
Like if you try to be everything to everyone,
right.
it's not going to be anything different. So having it be provocative in some way and taking a risk at least a little bit definitely serves you well.
Now, it's funny that you say provocative because you have a second side of you that some people don't know about.
I mean, sort of, I guess.
Sort of.
Yeah, so I've been doing modeling since I was in high school. I just do it on the side now. I mean, I have a 3-year-old. She's almost 4. But I figured like when I became a mom, I would stop doing modeling, and then I just started booking more jobs because there's so many print jobs where the persona is like, maybe she's a young mom, maybe she's a mom, and it was like I look the same as I did before. It's just like now clients I feel like can be so literal sometimes. Like they're like, "Oh yeah, she's perfect for this." So it was like, I booked some I did one for Starbucks where it was like, "Yeah, she could be a young mom." It's like I'm just holding a cup of coffee. It has nothing to do with being a parent. But I started booking a lot of those. And so it's been good. Like I mean, obviously over COVID it was really hard. A lot of stuff stopped then, but no, I mean that's been a good journey too. I used to do a lot of like runway modeling. I live in Chicago,
Mm.
and so I did runway through there like on the side, and then I was like, I feel like I'm kind of over this at some point, and so I just do print now and commercials.
Your airport there in Chicago is the worst one ever.
Okay.
I try to avoid flying in or out of there. I got stuck there one year for 27 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Ended up having to sleep on a cot. Some it was terrible.
Yeah, O'Hare's not the best. I've done a runway show at O'Hare actually.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you survive COVID? Because a lot of businesses, really got hammered.
Yeah.
I know our marketing department took out. We just blasted out. I mean, everybody kept calling us. They needed help. And what I what I try to explain to everybody out there, everybody that has a business, never shut down your marketing. Always continue marketing no matter what you do.
Yes.
And so a lot of them started to decrease their marketing prior to COVID, and then as COVID hit, they didn't have the money or the resources
That will hurt you later.
to get their business back running.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them started panicking and what do we do? What do we do? And it was just, it's not that we took advantage of them. We didn't. We just tried to get them back on the right track. And some of them just didn't have the resources or the money to get where they needed to be. And it was tough.
Yeah, COVID was kind of strange. I think that for my business, things slowed down for the first like 5 months or something. We work with a lot of small businesses, so like
Mhm.
solopreneurs and people who their their income stopped coming in. I mean, again, a lot of them are speakers,
Mhm.
so not a great year to be a speaker.
No.
So it slowed down, which was actually good for me because we did not have childcare. So for 4 months, we didn't have any childcare at all. It was just my husband and me trying to watch trying to watch Delilah. It was, like, crazy. So, it slowed down a little bit, but I didn't stop working. Like, I didn't slow down that pace. I just got up earlier,
Mhm.
and then I would try to get more stuff done, and I was, like, focusing on research and development. And so I came up with, like, 2 online courses. One's called So You Wanna Write a Book. It's a mini course that basically answers all the questions that people have when I get on a call with them. So it's like a mini, like 2-hour consulting thing and a
Wow.
DIY version. Then I have another course that teaches people how to outline their books.
Mhm.
And so I came up with those, and it was like between those two, I shot like 30 or 40 videos, like
Wow.
short videos, and built out all the content, all the worksheets. We started doing more marketing. We like created an Instagram account for the business, which we hadn't done. We started posting to LinkedIn more often. And so all this social stuff, we just started like getting ourselves out there a little bit more. And clients and past clients and people were just like, "Oh, I see you on LinkedIn all the time," or, "Oh, I heard you look like you guys are doing so great." And we were just like top of mind for so
Mhm.
many people that when people stopped panicking about COVID and they realized that business was going to go back to at least normal ish, right? And they were going to have money coming in again. Then our business, we just like blew up. And it's been so crazy since then. It's just been like upward, upward, upward. And so
Yeah.
now we're just scaling.
In the
Um,
last I say 10 months, we gained, or at least I gained another 2,500 followers on LinkedIn. So I'm up to almost 8,000. And it's just incredible because I've been getting more resources, more feedback, more followers, and even more business from LinkedIn than any other network out there.
that's
And
awesome.
but for me, it was, I can't be everywhere. And so I had to choose. So it's Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I just
Mhm.
don't even get on Snapchat. I don't get on Clubhouse. I don't get on TikTok. I
Well,
just don't
probably
need.
most of your clients aren't there. Like
No.
most of your lawyer and doctor clients, I mean, some of them are on TikTok, but
Oh yeah.
probably more of them are on LinkedIn.
And I find it annoying when you're just pointing this words all. Hey, say something.
It's a
Don't.
different format,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just, to me, it's annoying, and it's I find it degrading. You're a lawyer, you're a doctor. Say something, talk. Don't just point at words. But I guess it works for some people.
It's interesting picking which platforms you're gonna be on because you really can't do everything. So
Right.
you need to pick the things that make the most sense, and generally, that's where your target market is.
Hmm.
And if your target market's on something and you don't like it, I mean, you can hire someone else, but you should probably get yourself on there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, hire people that understand who you are. And that's always been the big thing is that you can throw your personality in there, but whatever that piece is has to sound like you and not the ghostwriter.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
but the cool name of your business, how did that come about?
I was on the elliptical one day and it just came to me. I just like the ERY at the end of things, like, so wordsmithery, I just thought was cute.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I've never considered myself a wordsmith at all. It was always an author, or is always an expert of something, but never a wordsmith. And I think that's pretty cool because
Thank you.
you're I think when I search LinkedIn, I think you're the only one that comes up for wordsmithery.
Oh, that's great.
That's good. So it's
Yeah,
easy
you
for
wanna
people to
rank for
remember.
your company name,
So
right,
how
Mr. SEO?
Yeah, and the funny thing is everybody can SEO nowadays, and everybody's and their mom is a social media manager, and so it's good for I think every entrepreneur to have more than just one thing. So for me, it might have started out SEO and social media, and then it gravitated into article writing and book publishing and you know um, we do seminars and speak and whatnot. So, but everybody has to have some type of plan B or C or D or, you know, there's plenty of letters to the alphabet, have a bunch of services,
Yeah.
that's just to me. And I know you're ADD just like I am, but I think you're a little bit
So
more
many
focused.
entrepreneurs are. I think, like, I read somewhere that you're 300 times more likely to own your own business if you have ADHD.
Mm,
So it's like
wow.
sometimes people see that as like a downfall, but it can also be a superpower, you know?
I was just never one to be told what to do. I had a lot of jobs when I first got married back a long time ago. Back in 1980, 89. So, but yeah, there was a whole string of jobs that I had. I worked for Coca-Cola. I worked for factories. And it's just never, none of them ever seemed to go anywhere. And it wasn't until I took the bull on by the horns and started my own business. And the problem is that, and a lot of people know my backstory as a owner of a carpet cleaning business. I struggled. I didn't know, and I had no idea how marketing worked. I thought I did, you
Mhm.
know. I thought you just paid money to the newspaper and let them design your ads, and they created ads just like everybody else, and that there's relatively no reason to call me versus my competitor. We all look the same. And when I started learning marketing, everything changed for me, and started teaching other carpet cleaners, started writing articles, started doing more, and the world got smaller because here I was in this little town cleaning people's carpets. And then I started writing articles, and people in Australia and
Yeah.
UK, and they're finding me, and they're asking for help, and so now I'm kind of everywhere, but I don't have any local clients anymore, which is kind of good.
Yeah, the whole remote business thing is something that I've been doing for years too. I mean, with ghostwriting, it's easy to have clients who are anywhere in the world.
Right.
And I think that with COVID and people staying home, it really opened a lot of doors for people to sort of get forced into doing it and then realize that it's actually kind of nice.
Hmm.
And that talking to people over Zoom is like easier in some ways than having to figure out, you know, how to meet up in person or whatever. So yeah, the remote business I think is going to be something that's growing even more.
My biggest thing was, when I'm writing for people in the UK or Australia or Canada, they spell things differently. So it's
Oh
like add an extra U, take out the Z and replace it with an S,
yeah.
and it was
That
like,
can be a bit confusing.
yeah, and their phrases are a little different than what we're used to. So it's like, no,
Yeah. Well, speaking of the UK phrases, my 3-year-old loves Peppa Pig, which is a British show.
right,
And so she's starting to use all these like British phrases where I'm like, what? She'll be like, should we put it in the post? And I'm like, the post, huh? Like the mailbox. Okay. Or like she asked me if I was gonna make mince pie for Christmas.
ugh,
And I was like, I don't even know what that is.
fun. So how do people find you? Where do they go
Yeah. So the
besides
website.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, the website's pithywordsmithery.com. You can find us on Instagram, pithy_wordsmithery. And I'm on LinkedIn, Amelia Forczak.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's not, well, not really a lot. It's a few places, but you'll find her, and you'll get to know her, and hopefully hire her to help you. I mean, you can hire me, but who wants a sarcastic guy? A few people do, but my goal. I only publish 4 books a year now. I've kind of downscaled a little because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and your team can handle I think a lot more than 4 books a year.
Yeah, we do a bunch every year. It depends on what we're doing for them. I can only write a couple books a year too,
Yeah,
but uh but I enjoy it. It's
I know.
fun.
I know there's others out there that can write a book every month, and to me that's too much.
Well, it's like I'm also running the business. Like
Yeah,
half the business is marketing, and so
right.
overseeing that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I've written a book in 3 months before, and it was like not fun for me
Uh,
or the author. Because like if you're an entrepreneur or you're working any other job, how are you going to fit that into your schedule?
right.
I always think that spreading it out a little bit more is better.
Well, in 2017, I made a mistake of we published 5 books that year, and we launched 4 of them almost overlapping over a 3-week period, and that was such a nightmare. I'll never do that again. And you learn things over the course of time, but that was the catalyst that said, okay, you need to space these out. You need to give it more dedication, and it was a lesson, a very expensive lesson learned. But it's just don't
It's a
launch
journey. Entrepreneurship's a journey.
don't launch that many books in one time period, because it,
Mhm.
it, it can it can backfire. Because people, what happens is you throw all this stuff on social media and put like, oh, you wrote another book, or you're launching another book, and the first one does well because all your friends are buying it. Then the second one, like, oh, another one, and then 3 weeks later they're like, stop, we're not buying anymore. But if you did it every 3 or 4 months, it's a little bit better.
Yeah, it's funny because actually the first book, I told you about the first book that I wrote that was New York Times bestseller.
Mhm.
We actually had a second book deal and we published another one that came out like a month and a half later. You notice how I didn't even mention that one? Like we did that. It was also great. Like that book was great too. It was just completely overshadowed by the first one.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a lot of things to consider when putting out your book, choosing a ghostwriter, and any advice you guys want, contact Amelia. I'm not going to answer my phone because I know how you guys are. Um, And a lot of my phone conversations from people who waste my time go into my Rob versus book. So I think that's why people don't call me anymore. So, but it was a fun conversation, and all the listeners, I hope that you contact Amelia and you go to her website and you go to her LinkedIn and you learn more about not only the ghostwriting process, but dive into her courses, dive into her website, and learn. You know, is there a subject in your mind that you want to write about? Because you know, I know the power of getting a book out there. Amelia knows the power of getting a book out there, and how it can change not only your life but how your business goes forward. And because that book puts you in a different category and it makes you the authority in your niche. So, I highly recommend that if you don't have a book now, start the writing process.
Yeah, I
Any
agree.
last words that you want to offer?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
And see, this is what makes her an e-hero. And, you know, I love her origin story. So we'll see you guys next week on another episode. Adios.